Hello everyone, this is part 1 of the series of all about Warp F7. Today we are going to have the unboxing and chat about specs, layout, and general info on the Warp F7 flight controller. So, whether you are a veteran or a beginner, this video might have something for you. Well, we went with the sleek tin box so that you can use it as storage after you have installed your flight controller. Well, if you turn the box upside down and look beneath, you will have general information of the flight controller, a QR code for guiding you through user manual and warranty registration, and the version of gyro that you might have opted for. There are 2 versions of gyro, MPU 6000 and ICM 42688P. Now when you look at backside of the box, you have the serial number associated with your FC. Through this serial number, you can register your Warp F7 flight controller for the warranty. The same label is available inside the box on the cap. Now let's get started with unwrapping and unboxing of the package. So, after opening the box, as mentioned before, there is same label inside the box with same serial number. We are greeted with few stickers. Of course, you can use your creativity and stick them on your laptop, quad, or any equipment you wish. Now after taking out the first layer of foam, we are introduced with star of the show, your Warp F7 flight controller, which is securely packed in dense foam. Keeping Warp F7 flight controller aside for now. Going through the second layer of the foam, we find a Ziploc bag carrying few accessories. So, these accessory bag contain rubber grommets and all the cables and connectors you might require. So, in the box of Warp F7, you get few stickers. The star of the show Warp F7 flight controller, a 5-pin connector for analog camera, a 6-pin connector for your GPS, a 6-pin connector for your digital video transmitters, 4 units of 4-pin connectors for your LEDs, 4 pre-installed and 1 extra, total 5 units of rubber grommets, a pre-installed Type-C port protector, a 5-pin connector for your analog video transmitters, 4-pin connector for your receiver, 2 units of 5-pin connectors, and a 6-pin connector for adding it to the end of cable connectors as per your requirements, and at last, an 8-pin connector for connection between flight controller and ESC. So, the top layout of Warp F7 flight controller consists of a 32 MB flash, gyro, which is either ICM 42688P or MPU 6000, both with a dedicated power supply, a BMP 280 barometer, 3 LEDs for 3.3 volts and beta flight status, and 2 LEDs for 10 volt and 5 volt BEC status. A boot button, the microcontroller and the brain, STM32F722 microcontroller, a dedicated PIO pad for soldering, peripherals like servos and actuators, a pit mode jumper pad for defaulting pit mode on user 1, saving VTX from overheating, soldering pads to solder peripherals as per your needs, and USB breakout board pads. And last but not the least, the orientation arrow. The orientation could be changed in beta flight through these settings and in iNow through these settings. The bottom layout of Warp F7 flight controller consists of an analog OSD chip, 5 volt and 10 volts BECs with filters, 3.3 volt power supplies, a reverse polarity protection, A Type-C connector. Variety of connectors for solderless connections. All these connectors are according to new Betaflight standards. For those who love to solder for reliability, we have soldering pads above on top layer of Warp F7 flight controller. These pads right here, with M1 to M4 and few other connections like R2 from UART2, are for 4-in-1 ESC. Then below it are pads for analog camera, along with camera control and UART5. Looking at the pads below, with UART4 are for receivers, so you can connect S-Bus or Spectrum through R1, and for Crossfire or Express LRS through full UART, and for Spectrum or other receivers if you require. There are RSI and 3.3 volt pads as well. Here we have pads for Motor 5, Motor 6, and UART6. If you need extra motors, you can change this UART6 to motor output 7 and 8. So either you can have 6 motors outputs with 6 UARTs, or you can have 8 motor outputs with 5 UARTs. For changing the UART6 to motor output 7 and 8, use these CLI commands. And for changing it back, you will require these CLI commands. Looking at pads on this side, we have 2 pads for buzzer. You have pad for GPS and compass, among which these below pads have UARTs for GPS and the above pads for compass for connecting it through I2C. These 3 pads are for LEDs. The pad below it is a PIO pad for connecting servos or similar peripherals. These pads here are for your analog or digital video transmitters. We have pads for LEDs for all forearm, along with jumper to disable internal daisy chaining on connectors. We also have jumper pads for connecting it for getting pit mode, and we have USB breakout board pads too. Those who prefer going through the connectors, okay. In the bottom we have every connector labeled individually, and these connectors are of Betaflight standards. So probably, if you desire it to be so, then your hardware could be much or less plug and play. Amazing, right? So going through the connectors, we have a connector for your analog FPV camera, which is labeled as CAM. We have a connector for your 4-in-1 ESC, which is labeled as ESC. We have a 4-pin connector for your receiver, which is labeled as RX. Here on the bottom center, we have a connector for your GPS and compass, which is labeled as GPS. Here we have connector for digital VTX, which is labeled as DVI-D. It works with all 3 digital systems, DJI, Walksnail, and HD0. And this connector right here is for your analog video transmitters labeled as AEVID. Now discussing about the 4 LED connectors. Right here we have gone through internal daisy chaining, so if you choose connecting the 4-pin daisy chain LEDs, you need to carefully look at the numbers associated with these connectors. So, this one is the RGB1 connector, the RGB2 connector, the RGB3 connector, and the RGB4 connector. If we are using the 4-pin LEDs, you should connect the first LED here, the second here, the third here, and the fourth here. If you were to connect the LED1 and LED4 first, it won't be daisy changed inside right, so you have to go through this sequence. If you opt to go for the normal RGB with 3 pins cable, then you should connect the upper shoulder pad jumper pads like this, and all 3 like this, and then you would be able to use 3-pin LEDs via 3-pin cables individually. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe the channel, like the video, and follow us on our socials. Feel free to ask any questions through comments or on any of our socials. We do try to reply to everyone actively.